the federal government and say, how do we get a better result for less money? Those are things we can do together. And my colleague and I work on some things together, and I want to work on those three with you and look forward to doing that. And I think if we do, a lot of our colleagues will join us. Thank you.
Madam President, would the senator yield for a question?
Republican whip.
Madam President, I want to tell the distinguished senator from Delaware how much I appreciate him and his friendship, and it's genuine. And I guess the thing that's so maddening about serving in the United States Senate is that everyone in this body, senator from Delaware, senator from New Hampshire, everyone who serves in this body understands the problems that confront our country that you so eloquently described in terms of unfunded liabilities for Medicare and Social Security that are on a path to bankruptcy, the debt, and just imagine if interest rates were to go up, what that would mean in terms of our ability to fund everything from safety net programs to national defense. But it never seems to happen. It never seems to, the date never seems to arrive when we actually sit down and address it. And I think this number of days without a budget is really symptomatic of the problem. But thanks to our colleagues across the Capitol, who passed a no budget, no pay bill, which has now been signed by the President, unless Congress passes a budget, we're not going to get paid, which is entirely appropriate and long overdue. So I would just say to my friend, and he is my friend, I appreciate your comments. I hope that someday, soon, that we can find a way, Republicans and Democrats alike, that's the only way it's going to happen. We can get serious about this, but unfortunately, it hadn't happened yet. I'm an optimist. I think it can happen, but it's going to require presidential leadership, and frankly, that's one reason why I wish the President would get off the campaign trail. Now that he's won, he's got another 4-year term. He doesn't have to worry about running for election again, but then to work with us, because that's the only way it's going to happen. So I appreciate the comments and look forward to continuing to work with the senator.
And again, my thanks to Senator Shaheen and Senator Hoeven for allowing us to have this colloquy. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam President.
Madam President.
Senator from New Hampshire.
Madam President, I have 9 unanimous consent requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate. They have the approval of the majority and minority leaders, and I ask unanimous consent that these requests be agreed to and the requests be printed in the record.
Without objection.
And, Madam President, I ask unanimous consent to speak as if in morning business.
Without objection.
Thank you. Today I rise with a heavy heart because our nation has lost one of its outstanding citizens, and many of us have lost a dear friend. Charlie Morgan, Chief Warrant Officer of the New Hampshire National Guard, passed away early Sunday morning with her wife Karen and their daughter Casey by her side. Chief Charlie Morgan was just 48 years old. For those of us who have had the pleasure of knowing Charlie, it's been a difficult week. However, as I rise today, I take comfort in the opportunity I had to share part of Charlie's life and work. Many know Charlie for the national attention she received over the last several years, advocating on behalf of her fellow gay service members and their families. However, first and foremost, Charlie was a soldier. She enlisted in the United States Army in 1982. After a brief period away, Charlie returned to service as a member of the Kentucky National Guard in 1992, 1 year before the now repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy became law. Following the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, Charlie returned for a third time, joining the 197th Fires Brigade of the New Hampshire National Guard, a tour that included a year-long deployment in Kuwait. In addition to the mental and emotional challenges of military service, Chief Warrant Officer Morgan shouldered the constant burden of keeping her life secret from her fellow soldiers. Married to her partner Karen in 2000, Charlie was unable to live openly under the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy. Immediately following the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, Charlie made national news as one of the first service members to publicly confirm her homosexuality and shed light on many of the remaining inequalities faced by same-sex military families. I first met Charlie in 2011. She contacted my office during her deployment in Kuwait when she learned that despite the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, her partner Karen of over 10 years would not be allowed to attend mandatory National Guard Yellow Ribbon reintegration programs upon her return. I was pleased to work with Secretary Panetta and the New Hampshire National Guard, who has been very supportive of Charlie, to ensure that she and her wife Karen would be able to participate in the program together. However, as those of us who appreciated her determination understood, Charlie was not satisfied. She continued to vigorously pursue equal benefits for same-sex spouses, particularly survivors' benefits and compensation still denied under the Defense of Marriage Act. And this was not an abstract issue for Charlie. In 2011, she was diagnosed for a second time with breast cancer. Concerned for the future well-being of her family, Charlie took aim at DOMA by challenging its constitutionality in federal court, and her case is set to be heard by the Supreme Court later this year. Several days ago, my office sent out an online condolence card to the Morgan family, and the response from that card has just been overwhelming. In less than a week, we received over 2,000 messages of support from citizens all across our country, and I'd like to read just a couple of those this morning. From Hopkinton, New Hampshire, we heard, "Charlie is a hero to many of us. Thank you for making your lives public so others can live their lives privately in love." From Oregon, we heard, "Thinking of you in this time of loss. It's also a loss for our country, but she leaves a legacy that will carry on." From Fulton, Illinois, we heard, "Thank you so much, Charlie, for all you've done. You will not be forgotten, and your service, work, and legacy will live on. Those of us left behind will honor you by continuing on in this all-important fight for equality." I hope that Charlie Morgan knew how many lives she touched and how greatly we admired her efforts. I know that she will be sorely missed and that her example will continue to guide us well into the future. Madam President, with Charlie's memory in mind, I will soon be introducing the Charlie Morgan Act. This bill will end a number of restrictions on benefits for legal spouses of all military service members and veterans, regardless of their sexual orientation. Every individual that provides for our defense deserves the peace of mind that comes with knowing one's family will be taken care of should the worst happen. No one should ever again go through what Charlie and her family had to go through. I hope all of us in the Senate will take up this legislation and act quickly to address this issue. It is long overdue. And, Madam President, I have a longer statement that I'd like to introduce for the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. I yield the floor.
Madam President.
The senator from North Dakota.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today for the purpose of a colloquy with my distinguished colleagues on the matter of the Keystone XL pipeline. So I ask for 30 minutes without objection.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today with distinguished colleagues, both Republican and Democrat, on a bipartisan basis to urge approval of the Keystone XL pipeline. Joining me today will be Senator Mary Landrieu from the great state of Louisiana. She's a Democrat. Republican John Cornyn from Texas. Republican John Bozeman from Arkansas. Democrat Joe Manchin from West Virginia. John Barrasso, Republican from Wyoming. Senator Mark Begich from Alaska, Democrat. And Senator Lisa Murkowski, Republican, also from Alaska. And I emphasize that to show the bipartisan support for this critically important project. Now, you may have seen, I also will have a statement from Senator Max Baucus of Montana, who's been leading this effort with me, in his case, on the Democratic side of the aisle. And he wasn't able to be here, but I do have a statement from Senator Baucus that I'll read as well, and I appreciate very much his statement of support. You may have seen that national gas prices now have risen to an average of $3.62 a gallon. So the average price for gasoline today in the United States, and it continues to go up, but it's up to $3.62 a gallon. Now that's the highest it's ever been in the month of February. So that's a new record. Not a record we want to make either, but it's a record. The highest price for a gallon of gasoline in the United States that we've ever had in February. And if you take a look at that trend line, you'll see that it's been going up dramatically. And that price is double. At $3.62 a gallon average across the country, that is double the price of gasoline compared to when this administration first took office. So it's a doubling of the price. And of course, every consumer, every working American is paying that price at the pump. It affects our small businesses across the country. It affects our families across the country every day. You may also have seen there was a poll released yesterday. Now, the poll was commissioned by API, which is American Petroleum Institute. The poll was conducted February 5th through February 10th by Harris Interactive. They polled just over 1,000 registered voters, and so the poll has a margin of error of plus or minus 3%. In that poll, 69% of the respondents support construction of the Keystone XL pipeline. 69%. 17% oppose it. So Americans overwhelmingly support the project. Overwhelmingly, 69% to 17% in the most recent poll. And of course, why wouldn't they? This is a project that provides energy to our country when we very much need it. It's a project that will provide jobs, tens of thousands of jobs. We have 7.9% unemployment. We have 12 million people out of work. Here's a project that won't cost the federal government one single penny, but it creates tens of thousands of high-quality private sector jobs. It's about economic growth. This is a $7.9 billion project. The project over its life will create hundreds of millions of dollars of tax revenue for state and local government as well as the federal government to help with our deficit and our debt without raising taxes. More tax revenue without raising taxes. And it's also about our energy security. Energy security for America. Instead of bringing in oil from the Middle East, this is about working with our closest friend and ally, Canada, to meet our energy needs. This pipeline will not only bring in Canadian oil, however, it also moves oil from my state of North Dakota and from the state of Montana to our refineries in places like Texas and Louisiana and other places around the country. So this is about making sure that we don't have to import oil from the Middle East. And I think that's something that every American wants. That truly is an issue of national security. But it's been 4.5 years since TransCanada, the company that is seeking to build the Keystone XL pipeline, it's been 4.5 years since they first applied for a permit. Here's a chart that shows the route pipeline would take, and it shows that they'd already built another pipeline. This is actually a second pipeline that they're seeking to build. But after 4.5 years, they still don't have approval of a project that's similar to other projects that have been built. As a matter of fact, you'll see we've built quite a few pipelines through the country. They go everywhere. But for some reason, this project has been held up for 4.5 years when almost 70% of Americans support it. We need the energy and we need the jobs. Why would that be? Well, yesterday you may have also noticed in the news that actress Daryl Hannah and about 40 activists handcuffed themselves to the fence at the White House, and they were arrested for that. So they were over and they, I guess, handcuffed themselves to the fence there, and they were doing that in protest of the Keystone Pipeline project. And maybe that's where we should be today. Maybe instead of our bipartisan group of senators here in the Senate arguing the merits of this project, advocating for the American people, what the American people want, maybe we should be over handcuffed to the White House fence, because that seems to work. I mean, it's been 4.5 years, and we still don't have a decision. We still don't have approval from the administration on this project. Even though gas prices have doubled on this president's watch, and even though the American people overwhelmingly support the project, and even though we need the energy and we need the jobs, and we don't want to be importing oil from the Middle East. But that's why we're here. That's why we're here on a bipartisan basis to make our case and to get this project approved. And I want to begin with recognizing a distinguished colleague and somebody who's been a real leader in the energy world and somebody who has a direct interest on behalf of his constituents in the great state of Texas in this project, because we need to move oil to the refineries in Texas, and we need to move product, not only Canadian oil, but oil from North Dakota, from Montana, and we need to get it to refiners, and we need it to get it to our consumers. So we, instead of seeing this gas price continue to go up, we bring it down. I think that's what the American people want. And Senator Cornyn, maybe you could talk for just a minute on some of the refining and jobs aspect of this multi-billion-dollar project.
Madam President. Madam President.
The Republican whip.
I just want to express my appreciation to the senator from North Dakota for his leadership on this issue. He has been relentless in pursuit of this presidential permit to authorize the Keystone XL pipeline, because he recognizes, like I do, its importance in terms of jobs, energy, security, and national security. I mean, it's been said that because of the revolution in natural gas production in America as a result of directional drilling or horizontal drilling and fracking, combined with the energy that we could get from the Keystone XL pipeline from Canada, that North America could potentially be energy independent, North American energy independence in the not-too-distant future. But let me just speak briefly, because I know the senator from Louisiana is scheduled to be here as well, and this is a bipartisan effort, as all successful efforts around here must be. The Keystone would create an estimated 20,000 American jobs in construction and manufacturing. In my state, which still is the #1 energy-producing state in the nation, and there's no coincidence here that job growth in Texas is outpacing most of the rest of the country. I would add that North Dakota is now the second largest energy producer in the country, thanks to the Balkan Shale and the efforts there. But in Texas alone, the Keystone would lead up to $1.6 billion worth of direct investment and would boost our state's economic output by an estimated $2 billion, creating not only thousands of long-lasting and well-paying jobs, it would allow Texas refineries to refine up to 700 barrels of oil each day in our refineries, making that into gasoline, jet fuel, heating oil, and the like. So what this would do is increase the supply at a time when, as the distinguished senator from North Dakota pointed out, gas prices have gone up because of restricted refinery capacity and the worldwide price of oil, creating more supply, and here in America can do nothing but help contain those high prices. It just strikes me that this is a no-brainer. While we find ourselves engaged in armed conflicts in places like the Middle East, and where Iran periodically threatens to block the Strait of Hormuz, through which about 20% of the world's oil supply flows, why wouldn't we want to make ourselves less dependent on Middle Eastern oil? Why wouldn't we want to make ourselves more independent on North American energy? And this is a no-brainer on almost every count I can think of. So let me just express my gratitude to the distinguished senator from North Dakota for his relentless leadership. And I know he's not going to give up. He's just keep getting stronger. I know that in excess of 50 senators have signed a bipartisan letter to the president on this, and it's very important to our country, to jobs, to energy independence and national security. And I see the distinguished senator from Louisiana here, and I know others would like to speak to this important issue as well, so I would yield the floor.
I want to thank the distinguished senator from Texas, and he's absolutely right. And look at the economic growth and dynamism in his state of Texas. Look at the growth and dynamism in the state of North Dakota. We're now the fastest growing state in the country, and Senator Cornyn is exactly correct. Texas is the largest producer of oil in the country. They produce, I think, about 1,000,001 barrels of oil a day. We're at 750,000 growing, so we're after you. But, you know, the important point is we're producing this product. We've got to have the infrastructure to get it to market. And again, I thank the distinguished senator from Texas, and I'd like to turn to the distinguished senator from Louisiana. Here's another state that is doing amazing things in oil and gas. They have refineries, and they have refineries that need product. And to get that product from North Dakota, Montana, from our ally Canada to Louisiana, we need pipelines. We don't want to be shipping it in from the Middle East. We want to send them our oil, and I'm very pleased that Senator Landrieu is here, and I would ask her for her comments.
Thank you, Madam President.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Madam President. I am very proud to join in this colloquy with over 8 members of the Senate this afternoon to talk about this important issue and to share ideas with our other colleagues and with those listening to this debate, the importance of this pipeline and the importance of getting a reliable, steady stream of oil and gas as we move to cleaner fuels in the future into our country. It's also important, I would say to my good friend, the senator from North Dakota, the importance of drilling more, particularly for natural gas, using the breathtakingly new technology that is allowing us to find both wet and dry gas, very valuable to our country, which is happening in many places in the country, to help fuel a renaissance of manufacturing. And, Madam President, this is not just going to help traditional oil and gas producing states like Louisiana and Texas. This finding of natural gas, this breakthrough in technology enabling us to retrieve this gas in not only an economically efficient way, but in an environmentally sensitive way, is going to be very important and impactful to many, many states in the Union, and is already we're seeing companies coming back, relocating from Chile, from places in Europe, from places in Asia, coming back to the United States because of this resurgence of gas primarily. But here we're talking about a pipeline primarily from oil coming out of sands, not the traditional deep wells where you have large deposits of oil that you drill down into, but a technology that's allowing the separation of these sands to get the carbon or the oil out of them to use. Now, yes, we want to move as quickly as we can away from carbon or to lessen carbon because of its damaging impacts. But there is a transition period, Madam President, where we have to go through. There's no waving of a magic wand. There's no snapping of a finger. There's no jumping from this generation of energy production to the next overnight. Even President Clinton, even, Al Gore, when he was vice president, talked about the transition that we have to go through. I see this pipeline as a transition. It's giving us oil from one of our closest, most dependable, and friendliest of all allies, Canada, as opposed to pushing us over the next 5 or 10 years to continuing to do business with countries that do not share our values, like the leadership, unfortunately, in Venezuela today, or the problems with countries in the Mideast. Even the Saudis, who we respect in some ways, do not have the same value system as the United States. We would much rather, at least my constituents, would much rather deal with Canada and Mexico not only are they better allies, but for Louisiana, we like working in Canada. It's a little closer to home. We like working in Mexico, and since many of these workers on these rigs and in this business come from Louisiana and Texas, let me be crystal clear. My colleagues that are helping on this are absolutely right. The people of Louisiana would like to work in Canada where the environmental protections are there, where wages are good, where there are not a lot of pirates floating around, where their workers are much less likely to be kidnapped. I mean, these are serious issues for the oil and gas industry. So that's one of the reasons that I've been urging President Obama, along with many of my colleagues, to rethink his position on this pipeline. Now, I guess this has been said by my colleagues. The senator I see from West Virginia is here, and I'm sure he's said this before on the floor, but Canada, Madam President, is going to produce this oil one way or another. The question is, who are they going to send it to? Are they going to send it to their good friend, the United States, to our refineries in Texas and Louisiana, or are they going to ship it somewhere else in the world? I would like, the senator from North Dakota knows this, to form a stronger partnership with Canada and Mexico so we can have security in North America, which helps the Canadian economy, it helps the Mexican economy, which immediately and directly affects our whole nation. And these are our border countries. We're doing a lot of work, I don't know if the senator knows this, down in Mexico, in the Gulf of Mexico. I just literally, and this is a little bit afield, but I was just recently in Israel and had the great opportunity to go offshore to visit a field, the Leviathan field, which is one of the largest fields in the world discovered, and in a remarkably new place, which gives Israel a great opportunity to think themselves about being energy independent or energy self-sufficient, which is quite exciting. But would the senator know that when I went offshore in Israel, who do you think that I met offshore? Was my own workers from Morgan City and from Thibodaux and Lafourche, and they said, Cher, why are you here? I said, well, the same reason you are. I mean, the Louisiana workers go everywhere. We're proud to do it. But we would love to be close to home, you know, Canada, Mexico, and again, our refineries, which are expanding for the first time in our nation's history, well, not in our nation's history, but expanding for the first time in many years. Our manufacturing base is expanding. And finally, I would just say in this colloquy, ask the senator from North Dakota, has he had a conversation happen with the oil minister from Canada? I think it's Minister Olivier. Has he talked with him at all recently? Because I did have a conversation with him yesterday, and I wanted to maybe share that with the senator from North Dakota.
To the distinguished senator from Louisiana, I just recently visited with the Ambassador Gary Dewar, and we talked about this issue and others, but please go ahead and relate your conversation.
Well, through the chair, I wanted to say I had a very good conversation with the Canadian Minister of Natural Resources. We had a long conversation, about 10 or 15 minutes, and he explained to me the importance of this development for Canada. He also said to me what I just shared with you all, that he said, Senator, Canada is going to develop this resource. It's just a question of who we send it to or who we share these benefits with. And so for those that are opposed to the pipeline, they don't like the direction it's going or think that there's something that America can do to prevent this resource from being developed, that is just simply not true. So I see the senator from West Virginia. I wanted to get that onto the record. I thank the senator for his leadership and for allowing me to join in this colloquy. But the people of Louisiana strongly support the development of this pipeline. We are proud of the oil and gas industry, but we also recognize that we need to make a transition to cleaner fuels, and we want to do our part and are happy with the natural gas that's being discovered in this nation.
Senator,
I'd like to thank the senator from Louisiana for her leadership in energy onshore and off in a big, big way. She's absolutely right. This is our opportunity to have North American energy security, North American energy independence, working with our closest friend and ally, Canada. This is how we do it. Mexico as well. she's also absolutely right. Canada will produce this oil. That is a fact. That's going to happen. The question is it going to come to the United States, or is it going to go offshore to China? And that's what you see these green lines here. They show the pipelines that would take that oil to China rather than the United States. Net effect, we continue then to import oil from the Middle East, and Canadian oil goes to China? Makes no sense, let alone the better environmental stewardship that we produce working with Canada, which we'll touch on as well. But I'd like at this point to ask the distinguished senator from Arkansas, Senator Boozman, to join the colloquy, and I would also invite Senator Manchin as well and I see that Senator Begich is here too. So I would invite Senator Boozman to make his comments, but then also offer the opportunity for our other distinguished senators to join in the colloquy.
Well, I thank the senator from North Dakota for your leadership and, again, spearheading us, and all of the senators that are here that, in a very bipartisan way, are trying to move this project forward. You know, we talk a lot about jobs in regard to this project, but that simply cannot be overemphasized. The United States Chamber of Commerce, most of the largest labor unions, major labor unions, all agree that if this thing were to go forward, which it has to do, would create 250,000 jobs, 20,000 of those tomorrow, almost immediately. So again, it's so important. It's important to my home state because many businesses, many hardworking Americans living there would benefit tremendously. We have a large Nucor plant. That Nucor plant in Blytheville, Arkansas, in Mississippi County, would supply a lot of the iron that's going to be used in this. We have another facility, Wellspun, tubular. They make oil pipe. They've got 500 miles of this pipe sitting in storage that they've produced to go forward, which should be a great thing. The problem is, instead of increasing employment for the future, right now they've had to lay off workers because of the indecision. So, you know, there's all kinds of reasons that we need to get this. Others have talked about national security reasons, but the labor, the good-paying jobs that would be created, again, not being dependent on places like Saudi Arabia and Venezuela, that's a pretty good deal, and we need to move forward immediately.
Well, Senator,
I'd like to recognize the senator from the great state of West Virginia.
Madam President, if I may, and I want to thank all my colleagues. This is something wonderful for the people that are watching, the people that might be here, to see a bipartisan colloquy that we all agree, basically, in energy being the crux of what we do and what this country is made up and how we got to where we are today. My little state of West Virginia now has a tremendous shale gas find in the Marcellus Shale, the Utica Shale in Ohio, the shale gas that we're being explored and being produced all over our country. We really, truly have an opportunity in our lifetime to become totally energy independent. So anything I'm saying is, where I come from, the people are such good people, and they have a lot of common sense. And they say, we'd rather buy from our friends and our enemies. How much will this displace as far as us buying and depending on areas of the world that haven't been friendly to the money that we give them from the product of oil that they sell us? Do you have an idea on that, Senator, if you could?
Madam President, I'd like to respond to the senator from West Virginia. Right now, between the oil we produce in the United States, working together with Canada and Mexico, we generate about 70% of the oil that we consume. This project alone would add 6%. You're talking about over 800,000 barrels a day this project adds and brings to market. So you go from about 70% just with this project phase one to about 76%. But understand this this pipeline is expandable to 1.4 million barrels a day. So you can see it would take us up even higher. So you're talking about a significant contribution to our oil supply, again, from North Dakota, Montana, and Canada versus, as you say, countries like Venezuela or from the Middle East.
My other question would be this. Since we have our senators from two of our greatest producing areas, and knowing that there's challenges that we've had in Louisiana and the Gulf Coast with a BP oil spill, also there's a lot of concern about the environmental. and that's why it's been held up. I understand our friend, Governor Dave Hyndman from Nebraska, now has approved. And that was, I understood, the last concern that we might have had. And I've always said this, and I asked the question, I will ask it again to my senator from Alaska. They have one of the harshest climates and one of the largest dependent oil producers for our country, and you all have been able to do it in a safe atmosphere. Senator, if you could comment on what your concerns, or if you have concerns, on the ability to do this in a safe environmental way.
Absolutely. First, to my friend from West Virginia, we have, built the largest single capital project back in the 70s when we brought oil off the North Slope. Almost 800 miles through the harshest, most unpredictable climates that you could ever see. And I will tell you, if you went back to the stories, the articles, the sky would fall, the environment would be destroyed, the world would come to an end by us building that pipeline. We're multiple decades past. It's worked very well. There haven't been those disasters that people claim. But on top of that, I know my friend from Louisiana mentioned the environmental impact and, that it makes sense. A pipeline is the safest way to move oil. But on top of that, you have a choice. And the senator from North Dakota made it very clear, and that is you get to refine it in China or the U.S. Now, I don't know about anybody here, but I would bet we all agree that between the environmental standards, we have a better environmental record than China does in refinery and refining of oil products. So it makes sense for us to do it. On top of that, I know, and again from Alaska, which people travel there not just for the jobs and opportunity, but the beauty of Alaska. We have more visitors who want to see the pipeline, to visit the pipeline. When I went down to Golconda on a rafting trip, it's, you're out in nowhere land. I mean, it's unbelievable beauty. But one of the last things you do when you come down and land your raft to get out and get back all packed up back home, there's the pipeline going right across to Golconda. And guess what? Hasn't damaged the environment. Matter of fact, there are more photos of people trying to get their raft underneath it so they can get the photo at the same time. So your point is a very good one. Again, the governor of Nebraska, they have approved it going through their state. But there's nothing like Alaska when it comes to the harsh environment you got to build in, and we did it. And we did it when technology was much different. Today, the standards are even greater. And so, again, I just want to echo your point, and if I can make one other last point, this is unique. The chamber and labor working together for the common good of this country and the jobs and the groups. You think of the Teamsters and the operating engineers, the pipeline contractors, the plumbers and pipe fitters. They're all part of this agreement to build this pipeline and train workers, which, as you all know here, huge gap in our trades. So we get to utilize a training opportunity, employ thousands of people, not only for today, but for the future. So from Alaska's perspective, we like it. We know pipelines. We know that you got to build them, big ones, as we did. And the fact is, as the senator from North Dakota said, they're going to move this oil one way or another, and we get a choice. Do we put it through our country, get the jobs that are attached to it, the opportunity to refine it in the states that have great quality refinery, or do we let China do it? This is a no-brainer from my state.
One very quick question, if I may, to the senator from North Dakota. There might be a fallacy thinking that only oil that's going to move is what we would buy from Canada. How much oil we would move from the United States we produce in the United States that's captive right now, that's not being refined, maybe down Louisiana or Texas? Would this help United States production?
I appreciate the question from the senator from West Virginia. For starters, we'll put 100,000 barrels a day. This is for starters into the pipeline. So day one, it's 100,000 barrels, but it's very important.
That's from North Dakota?
Just from North Dakota and Montana. North Dakota and Montana. But it's very important to understand that's just when we start. The pipeline is expandable, and today, North Dakota is the second largest producer of oil in the nation, second only to Texas. We produce 750,000 barrels a day, and it's growing, and more of our oil is leaving the state by truck and rail than by pipeline. We need these pipelines. This project alone will take 500 trucks a day off our roads, which are beating up our roads and create safety issues in our state. This is vital infrastructure we need to get this product to refineries in Louisiana and Texas and Illinois and other points around the country. And at this point, I would welcome, I want to thank the senator from Louisiana again for her participation in this colloquy, and I want also to turn to the esteemed senator from Wyoming, another major energy-producing state, Senator Brasso, and ask him for his thoughts in regard to the regulatory obstacles to energy development. If we're going to be energy secure, energy independent in this nation, we have got to find a way to empower private investment and empower the kind of development we're talking about, not only infrastructure, but the new technologies that will help us produce more energy in our country with better environmental stewardship. That's what we seek to do, and I know that's exactly what Senator Brasso is working on in his state, and I would like him to address that aspect.
Well, Madam President, if I may, and to just join in this discussion, and it is wonderful to see the bipartisan nature of this discussion, to turn and look around the floor of this chamber and to see 3 Democrat senators talking to this issue and 3 Republican senators here talking to the same issue, agreeing, because all of us like-minded in the fact that when we think of energy, and the Keystone XL pipeline is a big part of that, we think of energy security for our nation, which is part of this, economic growth, and environmental stewardship. And we just heard from the Alaskan senator. The other Alaskan senator will speak shortly. We hear of what a wonderful job people continue to do in one of the most pristine areas of the country, the state of Alaska. And I will tell you, as a senator from Wyoming, really an energy capital of this nation, that energy is a big part of our economy, but so is tourism. And if we did things that did not focus on environmental stewardship for our own state, it would impact our tourism. But energy is a big part of the economy, so we want to have economic growth, energy security, as well as environmental stewardship. But I will tell you, Madam President, it's been a difficult task based on some of the regulatory obstacles to energy development. The President likes to talk about how he supports all of the above American energy development, but in fact he has said, and we heard him the other night in the State of the Union address. But really his actions over the past 4 years tell a completely different story. Instead of making it easier for our own country to produce energy, now I believe he's made it harder. You look at the folks who are leaving his administration, Director Lisa Jackson, she said the EPA's role is, interestingly, quote, to level the playing field against fossil fuels. Secretary Chu, who's leaving the administration, said he was, quote, boost the price of gasoline to the levels in Europe. And Secretary Salazar, who's leaving, continues to talk about the fact that the energy strategy, he says, showed good results, but they have restricted access to federal offshore and onshore oil and gas resources through moratoriums, through blocking permits, and through leasing plans. They've denied Americans billions in public revenue and thousands of jobs. So I stand here saying that the Keystone XL pipeline is a perfect example of the Obama administration's pattern of delaying good projects by requiring excessive red tape. So I come here with you, the senator from North Dakota and the senator from Alaska, and look to you, the senator from North Dakota, and thank you for your leadership, for your determination, for your courage, for your fortitude in fighting to make sure that we as a country continue on our drive for American energy security. And that's exactly what we're going to have with this proposal. And I call on the administration today, the President as well as the new Secretary of State, to approve the Keystone XL pipeline, to allow that energy, which is either coming here to the United States or going to China or elsewhere, to approve it to come to the United States, to help our production, to help our consumers, to help our jobs in this country. Those are the things that are important as we try to focus on energy security for our nation, economic growth for our nation, as well as environmental stewardship. So I thank you, the Senator from North Dakota, for your leadership, and I see now the ranking member of the Energy Committee who is here with us as well, who has done a masterful job with a Vision Energy 2020. And for people that haven't seen it, I would say that they're missing something if they haven't really read through from the senator from Alaska, because she has focused like a laser on these 3 E's of energy security, economic growth, and environmental stewardship. So thank you for the leadership, both the senator from North Dakota and the senator from Alaska and ranking member of the Energy Committee.
Thank you. I appreciate the senator from Wyoming being here and for his leadership on energy. And again, want to recognize that he comes from an energy-producing state, a state that's producing energy for this nation and creating hundreds of thousands of good jobs in doing so, and also for his leadership on the Energy Committee as well. I want to turn to and recognize the senator from Alaska, who is the ranking member on our Energy Committee. As the senator from Wyoming said, she has recently put out a blueprint for energy development, energy independence, energy security for our nation. It is comprehensive. It includes all types of energy and, again, developing them the right way with good environmental stewardship and the latest technologies, but truly accomplishing something that the people of this country very much want, and that is energy security. And so at this point, I would turn to the senator from Alaska and ask for some of her comments on this Keystone Pipeline project in terms of the economic benefits and the need for our nation to truly have energy security.
Well, to my colleague from North Dakota, thank you. Thank you for your leadership on not only how we can get the Keystone Pipeline moving, how we can ensure that a resource from our friend and ally, Canada, can be utilized, can help us here in this country to truly gain that level of energy security that we've been talking about. Several good comments about the report that I released last week, my Energy 2020. Just happened to have a copy of it here on the floor. But out of 115 pages, I can distill it in one simple bumper sticker, and that is energy is good. Energy is necessary. If you look at the cover of the report here, it's essentially a map of the world from way up high, and when you're looking down and you see the lights at night, you can tell the prosperous places within the world. It's where the lights are on. It's where our energy is. And so when we talk about energy, I think it's important to really put it in the context of how important, how significant it is to our daily lives. A couple of weeks ago, or a week ago now, we were all reminded of energy when there were 34 minutes of dead time during the Super Bowl. And a lot of folks paying attention to, well, where do we get our energy sources from? It starts a good conversation, a necessary conversation. And in my document, I focus on 5 different areas when we need to talk about energy policy. And I'm looking for an energy policy that is abundant, affordable, clean, diverse, and secure. And when we talk about the 5th one, the security, this is where the Keystone XL project really comes into play. When we're talking about security, that doesn't necessarily mean that everything that we want as a nation is going to be produced right here within our own borders. What it means is how we reduce vulnerabilities from others, how we can eliminate our reliance on OPEC. And ladies and gentlemen, this is a reality. This is doable. This is possible by 2020. This is not some pie in the sky. Let me just give you some numbers here. In 2011, Canada produced roughly 2.9 million barrels of crude oil per day. Mexico produced 2.6. When you add this to the approximately 6 million barrels that the U.S. produces each day, total North American production, which is 11.5 million barrels, is far greater than the nation's net imports, which is 8.5 million barrels back last year, more than double the imports from OPEC. More than double the imports from OPEC. So if we can do more within our own borders here and ensure that we are able to rely on our friends to the north, the Canadians, and our friends to the south, the Mexicans, we can fully displace our reliance on OPEC imports by the year 2020. But part of achieving this goal is being able to count on the Keystone XL pipeline. It is as simple as that. It's about security. It is about ensuring that we've got a supply that not only helps us achieve that energy security, but it allows us to achieve economic security insofar as the jobs that are created, the ripple effect that goes out. It's not just constructing one pipeline. It's the ripple effect that comes from this boom of opportunity within our country. So it's jobs and economic security. It is energy security from the perspective of reducing our reliance on those countries that we don't necessarily like, removing ourselves from the need to import OPEC oil, and having the ability to control our destiny from a perspective of abundance rather than from scarcity. We should look to our friends and neighbors. We should work with the Canadians. The President should sign the Keystone XL pipeline bill into law. He should make it happen. We shouldn't be waiting any longer for all the reasons that so many on this floor have discussed this afternoon. So to my friend, the Senator from North Dakota, thank you for your leadership here. Let's make this happen now. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the Senator from Alaska again for being here today, talking about the importance of moving forward with the Keystone XL pipeline project. And again, for her leadership on energy issues. She is our ranking member on energy, and I think no matter who you talk to, she is absolutely inclusive when she talks about energy development, all aspects. The energy development, the environmental stewardship, the jobs, developing all types of energy, and she brings tremendous knowledge and experience to energy issues. And so I would urge the administration to listen to one of the leading voices in energy in our country, and that's Senator Murkowski, and ask them to approve this project. The senior senator from Montana couldn't be here today, but did ask that I express his strong support for the Keystone XL project. Senator Max Baucus from Montana, my friend from Montana, has said over and over again that the same thing that all of us know, and that is Keystone is about jobs, and that every day we delay the Keystone pipeline is another day we delay creating American jobs. And so I want to thank not only Senator Baucus, but all of the senators who have joined us here today. Again, Senator Landrieu from Louisiana, Senator Cornyn from Texas, Senator Bozeman from Arkansas, Senator Manchin from West Virginia, Senator Barrasso from Wyoming, Senator Begich from Alaska, and as you've just heard, Senator Murkowski from Alaska. We've made the environmental case. The environmental case is stronger with the pipeline project than without it. Every single state on the route is supporting the project. And I think, as Senator Murkowski so well concluded for us, it is about energy, it is about jobs, it is about tax revenue that we need to close the deficit and address the debt without raising taxes. It is about energy independence and energy security from this country, so we do not continue to import oil from the Middle East or from places like Venezuela, but rather we get it from our closest friend and ally, Canada, as well as from states like my own state and from Montana. And we refine it in our refineries and provide it to our hardworking citizens across the country. So instead of having record highs in the price of gasoline, which we have today, the highest price that we've ever had at this point in February, $3.62 a gallon, we start moving energy costs down for our consumers to create a more robust economy and to ease the cost or to ease the pain at the pump for our hardworking Americans. With that, I just want to close with, there'll be another rally or a demonstrators around the White House this weekend. I think it's scheduled for Sunday. Now, I don't know if they're going to handcuff themselves to the fence like actress Daryl Hannah did the other day, or what they're going to do. But the simple point is this. I just gave the information from a poll that was conducted February 5th through February 10th. 1,000 voters were contacted in that poll by API. It was commissioned by API, conducted by the Harris Interactive. 1,000 voters contacted. 69% support construction of the Keystone XL pipeline, 17% opposed. So here's a project that on the facts is something that needs to happen. We need approval of this project on the facts as we've gone through and cited in great detail. But this is a project that the American people support 69% to 17%. So my question for the administration is this decision going to be made on the facts and what the American people want, or is this going to be made on the basis of special interest groups that may demonstrate from time to time around the White House? And I believe the decision needs to be made for the American people to approve the Keystone XL pipeline project. With that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Senator from Wyoming.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise today as a physician who practiced medicine in Wyoming for more than 25 years. And I rise to continue the debate that we've been having in this body about the President's health care law. Although there's been significant debate and discussion, what I've continued to try to do is discuss some of the many ways in which this law falls short of its goals and falls way short of what the American public has asked for when it came to the need for health care reform. The Obama administration continues to put significant effort into trying to sell its health care law and tries to convince people that it is the answer to all of their problems. But in the words of John Adams, facts are stubborn things. Despite all the spin of this administration, the American people continue to learn the facts about just how bad this law is and how much it's going to cost them personally in terms of finances and personally in terms of their own health care. That's why the President's health care law continues this day to be unworkable, unpopular, and absolutely unaffordable. Now, we saw another example of this recently when one group who has previously supported the law learned more about what's in it. Back when we were debating the bill originally, labor unions around the country were among the biggest backers of the law. Unions sent their lobbyists up here to press their Democrat supporters to pass the law. They put out many statements saying things like, "We need this health care law now." They held rallies right out in front of the Capitol. We saw the same kinds of demonstrations last spring when the Supreme Court was considering a challenge to the law. Now, I went to the oral arguments, and I remember one group of union members chanting, "We love Obamacare." Well, apparently now, today, Mr. President, I will tell you, the love is gone. According to a recent front-page article in the Wall Street Journal, some union leaders now say that, quote, "Many of the law's requirements," they say, "will drive up the cost for their health care plans," and they say it will make unionized workers less competitive. Well, Republicans said that the President's plan would drive up costs for hardworking Americans from the beginning. Union leaders absolutely ignored our warnings and supported the law anyway. Now we've been proven right, and we're seeing that the buyer's remorse is there by a lot of the law's supporters. Mr. President, this was absolutely predictable. What's really interesting is the reaction. It is clear from that Journal article that many union leaders are angry and disappointed. Well, union leaders should be angry. The Obama administration misled them into believing that their members could keep the health care plan they had. They should be angry with President Obama. They were deliberately deceived when he promised repeatedly by saying health insurance costs would go down $2,500 for the average family by today. The unions are also now lobbying the Obama administration to do an end run around the law. The Wall Street Journal quoted union leaders saying that they were going to push the Obama administration to now subsidize their health insurance costs. Now disturbing comments come from the administration, suggesting it might be willing to do just that. Unions have focused their efforts on trying to get the administration to expand access to advanced premium tax credits. The subsidies were intended only for people who can't get insurance through their employer. That's how it was set up. Well, that means that union members who have insurance for a plan jointly run by the union and their employer are not eligible for the subsidies. The law is crystal clear. In fact, the law lays out 4 conditions for getting tax credit. You have to get insurance through the exchange, either a state exchange or the federal exchange. You have to pay the premiums yourself. You must not be eligible for minimum essential coverage other than through the plans offered to in the individual market. And you must not be enrolled in an eligible employer-sponsored plan. Those are all 4. That's it. So union workers covered by their employer or by a joint plan from their employer and the union don't meet these 4 criteria. Well, let's go back to Nancy Pelosi and that famous quote, "First you have to pass it before you get to find out what's in it." The union bosses should have read the bill before they decided to support it. And if they had read the bill, they would have been smart to oppose it. Despite the clear law, a spokesman for the Treasury Department told the Wall Street Journal that, quote, "These matters are the subject of pending regulations." Amazingly, one of the lobbyists for the union said that the administration can, quote, "create a loophole for them through federal rulemaking." Create a loophole for the unions. Create a loophole. Well, that's wrong, and the American people know it's wrong. The administration has no legal authority to expand access to health insurance subsidies under the law. This is not a matter of regulation. It is a matter of the law. It was a bad law. Bad law as it was being debated, a bad law, it was signed, and it is full of unintended consequences. This particular consequence was spelled out unambiguously. Last week, 31 Republican senators wrote to remind the President of that fact. Of course, it's not just union members who are disturbed by the law's effects on health care costs. Numerous reports have pointed out that costs will continue to rise when more of the health care law's mandates kick in next January. One study estimates that healthier people are going to see their insurance costs go up by 40% to cover the costs of insuring less healthy people. The law's requirements on caps on medical benefits will also cause an increase in premiums. So the requirements that adults up to age 26 be allowed to stay on their parents' plans. Late last year, Blue Shield of California asked for permission to raise its rates by as much as 20%. The CEO of Aetna said rates in some areas could go up as much as 100%. That's on top of the premium increase of more than $3,000 that the average family has seen since President Obama took office. We've got to lower the cost of health care. President Obama and the Democrats who voted for this piece of legislation in the House and in the Senate promised that the law would do that. Well, it has not done it, and it will not do it. Their plan was short on reform and long on budget tricks, on accounting gimmicks, and on empty promises. The cost concerns the unions raise are absolutely legitimate. I share those concerns, and so do all of the senators on this side of the aisle. But we can't just give extra benefits to union members. The problem isn't that the law makes union health benefits more expensive. The problem is that the President's health care law makes everyone's health insurance more expensive. The answer is to control costs for everyone, not just for special interest groups with friends in the White House. We need to revisit the taxes, the fees, and the other policies that drive premium increases.
We need real health care reform in this country, reform that gives people the care that they need from the doctor that they choose at a lower cost. When we were debating the President's health care law, some of us warned about the danger of writing a bill behind closed doors. Actually, the President warned about the danger of writing a bill behind closed doors until he decided it's exactly what he wanted to do. So he sent his chief of staff to do just what he said would be dangerous, write a law behind closed doors. Some of us were concerned about the special deals for certain groups. Of course, these were special deals that would harm the health care for the rest of us. President Obama and Democrats in Congress rejected our concerns. Nancy Pelosi, as I said we need to pass the law so we can see what's in it. Well, the American people now are seeing more and more what is in the law, and they do not like what they see. And now they're calling for all of us to do something about it. This is not the time, Mr. President, for special interest loopholes. It's not the time to make more deals behind closed doors. And it is not the time to hand out breaks for one favored group at the expense of everyone else. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Alexander.